And welcome everyone back to Thunderdome Metal Reviews. For when we get high on speed. I am the Reverend Dangerously. With me as always are Gabriel Cooper, Tracy, the Chicken Slaughter Newport, and the Dr. David Pizzo. Gentlemen, are you ready to kickstart my heart?
Yes.
I mean, I'm the one they call Dr. Feelgood. So
just a bit of a rattlesnake shake.
Just a bit.
Brought to you by
just a bit.
Steak and Shake.
I'm surprised
and
guys,
monkey
guys,
and monkey shoulder.
Let me remind you that everything changes.
It does indeed.
But it's the same old situation. If you really think
It is
about
the same old situation, but everything changes.
Yeah.
It's just sticky sweet.
Sticky sweet, indeed. So if you haven't figured it out by now, we are doing what is considered a classic in the land of glam / hair metal, Mötley Crüe's Dr. Feelgood. It is their 5th studio album. It was recorded at Little Mountain Studios in Vancouver, Canada. It was released on Elektra. The producer was Bob Rock. I add incidentally that it was his performance on this album that got him the Metallica job. The runtime on this album is 45 minutes and 7 seconds. The band at the time of recording were Vince Neil, lead and backing vocals, rhythm guitar, harmonica, and shakers. Mick Mars, lead guitar and backing vocals. Nikki Sixx on bass for Everything But Time for Change. Backing vocals and organ on Time for Change, piano on Time for Change. Tommy Lee, drums and backing vocals. The additional musicians were Bob Rock, who played bass on Time for Change and did background vocals on a plethora of songs. John Webster, who played the piano on Rattlesnake Shake and keyboard on some other things. Tommy Keenley side, Ian Putz, Ross Gregory, Henry Christian, who did the margarita horns on Rattlesnake Shake. And then a bajillion people who did background vocals on this, including people like Steven Tyler and Bryan Adams, which I thought was very interesting. And then pretty much the entire band, Skid Row, who did backing vocals on Time for Change, which I'm sure we will talk about at some point. I selected this album mainly because I wanted to subject Tracy to some glam. What did you guys think?
Well,
Yeah, Tracy.
I grew up on a heavy dose of classic rock and 98.3 classic rock. So glam metal is not something I'm unfamiliar with. I've built up quite the antibodies for it throughout my life.
But this was a concentrated dosage, right? This
It was a concentrated dosage. And you know what? My best friend growing up was named after the lead singer in this band. So his mom.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I didn't know that about him. Oh, that is great.
That is a lot to take in, Tracy.
Yep. She fucking loved Mötley Crüe, so I got good doses of it growing up. I think she even had a Mötley Crüe license plate, similar to David Sepultura license plate. So this was not something unfamiliar to me.
That's like a whole ass lot, Tracy. But did you feel it? It's before your time.
I felt it, and there are a lot of songs to this album I already knew, so this wasn't something.
Sure.
And I knew quite a bit of Mötley Crüe, but it's a lot of the greatest hits selection. I never have sat down and listened to Mötley Crüe start to finish.
Well, here it is. Glam, I really was hearing glam at the same time that I discovered what I would call actual metal. So glam pretty much I was like sort of into Guns N' Roses, but then I started listening to fucking Slayer and, Rest in Peace or whatever, because that was all sort of right around the same time. And so I was done with this shit. But I will say this was the album. I'm like, okay, all right. When I heard Dr. Feelgood, it was like just heavy enough that I tolerated it. So this was the in my thoroughly thrash drugged self back in 1990, this was the one that I was like, this, and I guess Guns N' Roses, because by the time you got into White Lion, White Tiger, White Tusk, whatever, I couldn't join you in that. Nelson, there was no bottom in this genre. So I also want to add that since then I've seen fucking biopics and other things about these assholes, and I don't.
Great word.
Oh my god! Vince killed a guy. It's a whole lot. Their life. That's my 2 cents. So I was very familiar with this album. It was one of the few glam albums I really interacted with because I thought it was heavy enough that it wasn't totally for posers, unlike Poison. So that's just who I was. What do you mean to say? Gabe? Once you found thrash, man, it's done.
It was all over from there. That makes sense. So this was the first time that I'd willingly subjected myself to a substantial amount of glam metal or hair metal or whatever you want to call it. My familiarity with this music, I think, goes back to maybe, if you remember back on TV in like the early to mid 90s, they used to have like infomercials for these compilations of different kinds, like, this is hard rock, whatever whatever they call it. And you'd see the occasional hair metal, like sort of power ballad. I guess there was one of just power ballads on it. But anyway, so you'd see the occasional hair metal band pop up on that. And that's where I heard this kind of music for the first time. And I have to say, I was never drawn to it, not once. But that said, it might be a generational thing too. It was just barely in elementary school when this came out. So it would not have hit me at the appropriate time, I don't think.
Oh, this is great for babies, young children.
Yeah. It's definitely meant for that. And I don't think I said when it came out. It was released on September 1st of 1989.
Yes, it was.
So, which I was roughly
13, right?
13, yeah, at the time that this came out. I agree with a lot of what David said in that Mötley Crüe actually, it's kind of funny because thinking back, I always conflate Mötley Crüe and Guns N' Roses in my head a little bit. And Guns N' Roses always felt more dangerous, but I guess Mötley Crüe actually was more dangerous.
I think that's accurate. I mean, they may not have killed as many people in terms of people crushed to death because of Axl Rose's poor choices. But yes, in terms of like friends of yours, these were not people you wanted to hang around with. You were going to die.
No, and there is for lack of a better term, and I think that they would appreciate this dirtiness to this sound that I appreciate. Because a lot of that stuff, Poison is okay. Poison has some songs that I like, but a lot of that glam stuff, especially as we get out of the 70s, where it's kind of like the glam punk thing with T-Rex and the New York Dolls and stuff like that, and really get into the big glam of the 80s. Man, it does. They were packing people into stadiums. They were selling tons of albums, and
they were
support for the bands was very much had a better gendered split than I would say thrash did.
Oh God, yes.
But but this was the glam that the metal guys could still listen to.
Exactly.
So, go ahead, Tracy.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I'll let you finish your thought first. It's probably more pertinent to what I was going to say.
No, all I was going to say was that this is probably, I mean, I'd heard some of their other stuff, but I think this was the album that I really kind of got into it on, and then like went back in time to some of their earlier stuff. I'd probably heard Girls, Girls, Girls a million times by then. But and then later on, when I started working as a bouncer in strip clubs and hanging out in strip clubs, man, I heard a ton of these fucking songs. Them, Def Leppard, all kinds of other like glam shit. So that's all I had to say.
Yeah, I just want to tack on there that, Mick Mars is just playing is fucking sick. Yeah. Just in terms of like the riffs are real. So even if you're coming from like, I love Anthrax so much, you're like, oh, okay. I mean, it was enough, like Guns N' Roses. I mean, they were sort of the heaviest. And given the rest of what was on G105, which is what I was listening to in Durham, North Carolina, it was some heavy shit, right? To have this come on, or like November Rain or whatever, a little bit later. I guess, has it aged well? I don't know, y'all. Then some I was of it 12.
Has, some of it hasn't. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, some of it, I don't know. Well, we'll get into that, I'm sure, as we talk about it.
Well, that kind of brings me to what I was going to say is, please. I don't think we've had such an over-the-top band that we reviewed since like Nashville Pussy, like a year ago, of just like, hey, it's all about fucking dicks and pussies. That's all it's about.
Pretty much.
Yes. I mean, LA, I get it. And I've seen the same old situation video. I know what went on.
The only thing that like isn't overtly about sex, I think, on this album is Kickstart My Heart,
which is about a heroin overdose.
Yeah. So.
If I could just
please.
If I could just maybe divert a little bit and return to the music here, like I mean, I have to take Ben's word for it, and he says this is the sort of the glam band that metalheads could actually get into. You know, for me, it's just party music. You know, it doesn't say anything else to me than party music, and it doesn't surprise me that they'd be playing this kind of stuff in strip clubs. It feels much more hard rock and blues to me than it does metal. That may be just my bias. It also just feels pretty commercial. You know, it's not doing anything that is super interesting or new for that time to my ears.
You are correct on all accounts, my man. But this is a time though, and it seems kind of funny to be talking about '89, but this is still a time when metalheads were still really riding and dying with AC/DC, which we're going to be doing a blast of. I mean, the heavy metal had not so far divorced itself from hard rock that the two were incompatible as yet.
Yeah, that was beginning. I mean, this is the whole, literally the arc into extreme metal. But yeah, I think there was a lot of overlap in this phase.
Yeah, like wasn't thrash almost a counterpunch towards the glam metal?
Oh God,
early
yes,
80s?
yes. And the same way that black metal would be against death metal, and death metal was against thrash. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that for a light comparison, I can compare Mötley Crüe to at this time is the Five Finger Death Punch.
Yeah, that's fair.
Probably so. Probably.
Yeah, probably
Five
so.
Finger Death Punch.
Yeah.
It's hard to call that party music, but I haven't listened to all that much of it. So maybe.
Well, it's just like I don't even say like they definitely have a party vibe to them, but it's not that. It's the accessibility of this for the traditional non-metal fan
100%
to accept it.
I get it.
100% that. I mean, but we have to remember that this was also at a time pre-Nirvana when you could actually sing about being a rock star and the excessive lifestyle and not be considered a raging dickhole. So even if you were one,
the very last moment though, right? This is hindsight, this is the Rococo moment of that decadence and access, because between the thrash rejecting them and then Nirvana, it's just the whole thing shifts in the 90s. Part of this, of course, is I want to point out one, LA being completely fucking insane, which is also what gave us Slayer, but also just the decadent excess of the 80s. I mean,
100%.
This I want to point out, this music is extremely part of that. And also, on the one hand, it's literally about just like, I'm begging chicks and smacking ass, but then it's also, glam was in this very interesting way transgressive in terms of like makeup, and in a way that's very un-80s. I was pondering, Rob and I were talking about that, well, in terms of the Reaganite.
Sure, mainstream,
yes, that's
certainly.
what I mean.
Yeah,
for sure. But but no, I know that was just LA being LA, but that became mainstream by '89 is a really interesting, both sort of reinforcing of Reaganite, use your stock option machine gun arm, cocaine insanity, but then also this transgressive weird LA shit.
Well, it's so interesting because you've already mentioned it, not to get into songs already, but like Same Old Situation. I mean, that's a song about like dude's girlfriend leaving him for another woman, but it's not disparaging lesbian relationships, really. So for the time, sure. as you pointed out, does it age well? Well, we'll talk about it, but it was especially for the milieu, where it was at, where it was coming from. It was something else. I do agree with Gabe that there is nothing groundbreaking on this, but I have to say, as like a heavy blues band, that for all you can say about Tommy Lee, dude is a pretty fucking decent drummer.
He is.
And Nikki Sixx wrote most of the songs and is a pretty good bassist. The weak link in this is Vince Neil's voice, which was kind of getting shot at this point. Yeah,
it was breaking a little bit. This album also reminded me of Bob Rock, both being a good producer and being a complete fucking tool. Woman, like all the shit that you see in that video about the making of Black Album, he tried to get them to do is this album. Like, damn it, Bob Rock. Like, that's.
Oh, well, the thing I love about this is the fact that he basically, this is at a chrysalis point where everybody in the band was trying to get sober and realized they fucking hated each other, so they had to record all their parts individually.
Yeah, it's this. They were trying to turn their lives around at this juncture, and I mean, when you're shooting Jack Daniels into yourself, like it just through phlebotomy means, like that's
yeah. These dudes lived the gimmick, to borrow.
Oh, they did. They did. No, they did. I will grant them that.
Yeah, well,
Songs? Oh, go ahead. Sorry,
I was
please,
gonna say,
Tracy.
who did Rebel Yell? I can't.
That was Billy Idol.
Yeah, like I mean, he even openly stated that he became a musician to live the rock star life, and I'm pretty sure would be surprised that's a similar fact for these guys in this band.
I mean,
Oh.
yeah. I mean, well, I think it varied. I think the guitarist was quite serious and was older than them, and in other bands had like a degenerative
Bone disease.
bone disease. That's what
Yeah.
I said. It was like on borrowed time. So again, I wish I'd seen a biopic about Lamb of God and a biopic about Acid Bath, but I've seen a biopic about these assholes, and that made me go down a Wikipedia hole. So yeah, part of them, I'm sure. I think you're right, Tracy. To a certain degree, they were partiers, but I feel like, you know, at least what's his name? Yeah, Mick Mars was serious as fucking cancer about music, and I think it shows in terms of the, you know, how professional the writing on this album is, and the execution is. Compared to, man, are we going to line this up against Poison or Nelson?
We'll do some of them at some point.
White
Maybe not
Lion,
Nelson.
Cinderella.
With some Poison.
Cinderella, Striper.
Is that a threat?
Is that a threat?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's
that's
totally
like,
a threat.
I will fuck
Well,
you
I
up.
mean, you know, to Gabe's point, a lot of those bands are decent, like hard rock blues bands. It's just, you know, they're
Sure.
not really metal, and you know, they never pretended to be. And again, this is straddling that line between hard rock and heavy metal. Go ahead, Tracy.
I was gonna say, you also got to take into consideration this is mid to late 80s is when this is going on. This isn't going on in 2012 where Cannibal Corpse has already been in the system for 20 years, and Venom black metal hasn't been out for 30 years. Like this is still before those groundbreaking albums and new genres have seeped into the fabric of metal itself.
All of that, the interesting thing, of course, is almost that it had happened, because Altar of Madness, what's that first Cannibal Corpse? Strewn for a quarter of a mile, or Eaten Back to Life. Like those albums are literally right at the same time as this. So it's 89, 90 is such an it's like thrash's high point. I think it's glam's high point. I think it's death metal's birth. This is like a bunch of Venn diagrams.
I mean, I understand that metal, as we know it now, does not exist at this point in time. But what I'm saying is this is totally safe and vapid. It has nothing to do
Definitely
with
vapid.
you know, any boundary stretching. You can maybe say the makeup is kind of transgressive on the men, but pretty much everything else about the views that they express are completely regressive. I mean, like it's not like if you're going to try to argue that they're like, look, they're pushing the envelope, but they're pushing like a very small one, if at all. Like if you're talking about, okay, this is like the Reagan years, and you know, you have a lot of sort of conservative backlash, like you could push the envelope by doing very, very little in terms of the topics that you're addressing. They happen to be doing it on a certain level of like, you know, sexual excess and maybe the partying stuff. But otherwise, it's not sort of, I don't know.
I think their agenda is much more hedonism than politics.
It 100% is. And I would only push back on the vapid, even though I agreed with it, in the sense that they were writing about their own addictions, at least in some of the songs, not all of them, because a lot of these songs are just your like, man, let's write a song about being in the strip club, and it's probably their 15th fucking song if we looked at their entire discography about being in a fucking strip club. So I do agree with that. But there is at least an effort put into on some of the songs in this album of Mickey Six trying to address some of his own demons. Whether he's achieves that, whether he's doing it seriously, who's to say? But it does show some growth, as opposed to, again, to reference it, and we may or may not ever do this album, but Girls, 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 where it's just like, look at all the fucking strip clubs and all the strippers we've seen, as opposed to that song.
Here's my favorite strip club, this particular song.
Yeah.
Brett Michaels. Yeah.
And it's, you know, we've kind of talked about their transgressiveness, but it's also in that aspect, you got to talk about like the transgressiveness of like Twisted Sister, who kind of took it up to 11, or like, let's make it even crazier and run with this.
It's hard to forget that for a long time, because I mean, like, if you look back at Pantera's albums before Phil joined the band, they looked like these guys. If you look at Slayer's really early stuff, they looked like these guys.
They're from the same scene.
I know, but I'm just saying,
like, they're playing like right down the road from them at the same fucking time, and when they're coming up.
I want to make the statement that even after Phil had joined these guys for an album, they looked like these guys.
You're right, they did.
You're right. Yeah. Before they broke and with Calories from Hell.
Before
they
decided to inject.
So
I
yeah,
hate God into their veins.
Again, I don't know enough about this band to know what they were doing with putting on makeup and wearing like long hair and sort of that aspect of it. Like you could do that also and call it like appropriation of drag. It's
that
like,
is where it
to
came
me,
from.
right.
Sure.
So to me, it's like I don't know. It doesn't indicate any sort of progressiveness. It doesn't indicate any kind of like actually challenging anything. It's mainly just cashing in on shock value.
Well, I think that's part of it was the shock value, and
For sure.
you don't know much. I think you can't actually talk about glam metal without talking about their hair, and this is where like thrash even still like thrash heads still wear skinny jeans and like they kind of pull that from this scene aspect of
They
it.
were transitioning out of it a little bit by this era. Now, if you look at like some of the earlier 80s stuff, they had like the big teased hair and everything. But if you go back, and I might actually have you guys watch a video from this era later on, both Nikki and Tommy were basically sporting the same hairdo that's Jason Newsted from Metallica had at this era. So it was kind of transitioning out of the overtly super tease, super leaning on makeup and hairspray and all this stuff, at least for this particular band by 89. Go back 3 years earlier to 86, completely different story. Go back even earlier to that to 83, completely different story. And I do think a lot of that is coming out, as Gabe rightly pointed out, to the glam scene in Studio 54 and that crossover where punk and crap, I'm forgetting the genre, disco are meeting and what is evolving out of that. But anyway, shall we talk about songs?
Let's do it.
Oh, look at this list of songs for those of you who are watching. Actually, if you're listening on Spotify, you can now watch the videos because we have been uploading videos to Spotify. Although fuck Spotify's political stance. Anyhow, I will go first. Dr. Feelgood is a great fucking song. Kickstart My Heart, great fucking song. Without You, decent power ballad. Same old situation, I really like. Don't Go Away Mad, Just Go Away. Also, I think it's a great song. Time for Change, second power ballad on the album. Also pretty good, also fitting in this political moment. I will have to say, though, that Sebastian Bach from Skid Row fucking slays Vince on that as the backing vocalist. And I appreciate that level of, fuck you, I'm going to show off. So,
I mean, it helps when he's a better vocalist, anyways. But
sure, but it's also his voice wasn't shot. And he was just like, oh, yeah, Vince, you want me to sing back up? I'll sing back up.
I guess I'll go next. I agree with Ben. I think Dr. Feelgood is really a great opener. TNT, I think, does a good job leading into that. Kickstart My Heart. I really enjoy that song. Same old situation. And Time for Change is a pretty good power ballad. And they do a good job, I think, on every album they have a couple of power ballads on them.
David or Gabe?
I really do view this like eating candy at the movie theater. Like this is like this is like food at the state fair is how I feel Motley Crüe. It doesn't really have any nutritional content. And I don't think it's pushing on us any message other than party. But it is fun. You got to admit the ride is fun. Dr. Feelgood is an awesome song. That was the one that sold me that. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll give this a try. I feel like Slice of Your Pie has some interesting weird stuff towards the end of the song where they go into like minor chords and stuff. And I wish they did more of that. I'm like, this is starting to sound almost like Alice in Chains. And I'd forgotten they ever sounded like that, like because that wasn't one of the songs that was on the radio. It was like Kickstart My Heart. So some of the non-radio moments in this album are actually fairly interesting. And then I remember almost all the rest of these I remember from the radio. Time for Change, I feel like, is the poor cousin of Winds of Change by Scorpions, but maybe
At least it
wasn't
wasn't
fun.
written by the
I was gonna say
Seattle.
the same
That's what I was
fucking
gonna
thing.
say. At least you beat all.
It's not even that. If there's probably another ballad that is like trying to be Winds of Change, and this one is copying that one.
This one's copying that one. Yeah,
It's a copy of a copy of a copy.
So I don't know about that, but yeah.
Also, I
guess
got the lyrics wrong. It's nothing stays the same.
Nothing stays the same. So there's some fun moments on here. It's politically regressive. It really is just straight party music. But if you're gonna have a pool party and be a complete idiot, they're here for you. They will bring you to harbor in that situation.
Yeah,
probably with Jack Daniels in your veins.
I
But
was about to say they showed up with a case of Jack Daniels and some Coke. That's the party.
yeah.
And I don't mean the liquid kind. So
yeah, so it does exactly what it was designed to do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna say.
dude, I heard. I'm sorry, Gabe, to cut you off before you give yours, but Slice Your Pie, Sticky Sweet, and She Goes Down. I heard so goddamn many times in a strip club, and it's just like and that's what they're meant for, I'm sure. And one last thing, I do think for this genre of music, Slice Your Pie is better than Warrant's Cherry Pie. Your mileage.
I think that is accurate as well.
Also pretty low bar, but
there's no bottom to this genre. That's the thing. From here, it just slopes downhill quickly.
So I liked some of the same songs you all did. I enjoyed Dr. Feelgood. I enjoyed Kickstart My Heart. Rattlesnake Shake is also kind of decent. And Without You, I definitely thought was not terrible as a power ballad. But I think after that, it goes downhill pretty quick. Yeah, and I had the same thought that David did about Time for Change. The lyrics just aren't very good. But and it's obvious that they aren't singing that because, I don't know, they're actually excited about, I don't know, the fall of communism or something like that. It's just, they're cashing in on that. So
it was a political moment to make some money.
Right.
Gabe certified not terrible. That's what the label says on Without You.
I got a feeling that's what it's going to say.
I was surprised. I was surprised when I heard it. I was just like, this is actually not too bad.
Yeah. Supposedly Without You was written as Nikki Sixx's ode to him going into rehab, and he had to find a higher power and self-help. And so instead of turning to God or anything like that, he turned to the woman who had been with him through the entire thing. How true that is, I don't know. That's just the rumor that I heard about it. Anyway, it is time to grade this. I selected it, so I will go first. I think that this is an album from a time when you didn't have to have all solid songs on it. I think it's a B+. I think it's an excellent album. I really like a lot of the songs. A lot of the songs are also filler, so it's about half and half there. But the tracks that I really like are, part of it is probably because I was coming of age at the time this was released, so it's just a little bit of a nostalgia bump, but I do think that it's an excellent album.
I'm going to come in just a hair lower at a B for many of the same reasons. It's really empty calories. But yeah, I they got me on the nostalgia too, so I will give this a B.
I'm right there with David. Nostalgia, empty calories. It's sticky sweet.
Well, I'm the odd one out again. I think this is for hardcore fans only. I think you have to be a fan of either this band or this genre to really enjoy the whole thing. I liked a couple of the tracks, but I really had to force myself a little bit to get through it a couple of times. That's okay. It's probably just not for me.
Right on. So what does that give us the aggregate score, Tracy?
That gives us an accurate score of 84. Now, would you buy it?
I did. At the time. So that's a
yeah, I had the tape. That's what I had it on tape, because that's where Tron was living in 1989 with my Walkman on the bus.
I would not buy it.
I wouldn't now, probably, but I did then.
I don't know if I'd want to own a copy of the entire album when I can now just pull the songs I like off onto a playlist. But
I owned a couple, like their early 2000 greatest hits album that had a sick love song on it. But other than that, I don't think I'd buy anything else from him.
That brings us to you, Gabe.
I mean,
What?
if I were opening a strip club, I'd definitely download a couple of these songs.
There it is.
Yeah,
there it
100%.
is.
But
What's the
I don't-
intended use?
Yeah.
He does have a basement
That-
for a reason.
Basement. The club is just called the basement.
The basement.
The
They
basement.
probably played at a club called The Basement in their day.
They would. And
Oh, shit.
Oh,
All right.
man.
So what are we doing the next time, Tracy?
Next, we're looking at David's pick in Lamb of God's 2012 release, Resolution.
Fucking strong
yeah.
album cover.
fuck yes. And on iTunes, I told you some of them are animated now. This one's animated, so it's raining down fucking ash on the viewer. Like
Awesome.
that fire is burning and ash is coming down on you in the manner of Kuwait in April of 1991 when it all looked like that.
Yeah.
Shit, dude.
Hey, anyway, we go from one extreme to the other.
Yes, we do.
Not the band. But thank you for listening, and Rattlesnake, shake your way into the next episode of Thunderdome Metal Reviews.